Well, good morning, girl. You're all tucked away in the cold. Parked her in here last week. Oh, it's a beautiful day. Have a little Saturday. We were 40 below last weekend. Well, technically we were 35 below, and that was air temperature, not wind chill. We were straight 35 below, and the heating and cooling company had lots of customers without heat, so we did not get much out here last weekend at all. So I figured we'd come in the garage and show where we're at with some projects. Morning, Chop. Lights on. Display's on. Oh, hello, girl. How you been? So, looks like I've had this playing with getting the wing window stuffed in the door and playing with that, but I don't think I ordered the wing window gaskets. And originally on building this, it's more of a driver and for fun. I was going to paint it and use it, but you can see right here that these gaskets are just so brittle they're falling apart. So I gotta order wing window gaskets, which if you've ever done wing window seals, these are a pain in the butt to put new seals and stuff in and get them to seal nice. So I will be doing that and getting that done, but then I guess that'll give me a chance to hand sand down these frames and do a little rattle can rebuild on them and get them looking better. And so those aren't going to go in until I get some gaskets and get those ordered. I was playing with the fuel gauge, trying to find the wires on the internal wires that went to the original gauge and testing them and looking for, and there's part of the old harness, nice little mess. What was sending the fuel sending unit, and I was getting confused because the people that rebuilt this for me that did a beautiful job, but the fuel gauge, my biggest request was I wanted that fuel gauge to work off the sending unit that this original truck was, and it is not even, it's not right at all. This is like a 75 ohm fuel gauge, and the sending unit in this truck is like 120 or 220 or something like that. I actually found the wire right there. That is the sending unit from the tank. I have a friend coming out today or tomorrow. He's got a bunch of resistors, and we're going to play with resistors and see if we can stack resistors in enough frequency to get the fuel gauge to be mildly close. So that's that. Other than that, I can turn this on, it fires right up and things are looking good. I do have the this thingy here, the electric doesn't go through it thing, the fuels box mounted. I've got the control module things mounted over there. I'm going to be doing my AC lines and getting some of my AC lines done so I can get the radiator in this. I do have the radiator there. I have a shroud made for it that I had done at Brandon's shop. He used to, I don't have any aluminum. He had some aluminum, so he made me a little shroud that we can throw over that. I did order it from somebody that I won't mention their name, that it never came in and was always on back order, so there's that. And then I'm not 100% sure on this here fan with the nut and the way this attaches and the way this puts here. There is so much room between here and here. I'm thinking I might just take a saw and whack that guy off right there, and then Mr. Fan Blade is gone, and then we can just use the electric fans that are there. The other thing on this guy is the truck that we used for the motor and frame. The kid who had that truck rolled it, and severe enough of a roll, when he rolled it, he broke the rear axle. And so this differential that's in the back of it is a completely different differential, and when I put it on the frame, it was just legitimately tacked on. It's not fully mounted. The shocks aren't really there. The brakes are just kind of free hanging things that way. So I do have to get that entire rear end put in and get it mounted properly so that it's actually part of the truck. And then this girl, we've got a bunch of fun toys in for it. We did get the computer for that transmission is in, and the entire harness for that transmission came in. So now we have a way of shifting said transmission. And then we have a new fuel tank for the CUDA up there. We're going to drop it down, get the plastic back off her because we just had it covered up when we were painting that one. So now that that's unpainted, we can take care of that. I was concerned because this came packaged. You can see right here, this was pinched and this was folded and bent around this, and it kind of broke the wires in there. But this should not be the right sending unit. This tank was supposed to come with this new sending unit for fuel injection and to be ready for that. So it's not, this probably just comes off and I need to get the proper one in there. So I was kind of concerned about that, but not. One thing that you can see, if you see the blank right here, the CUDAs originally, I think we can even see that over here, originally filled up from the license plate. So, and that's where you fill them up, which I've got like our Fury and that kind of deal is a pain in the butt to fill up with it on the, through the license plate. So this car, we put that fuel filler up on top, like the Charger Challenger. I guess you can't see it till I put it down, but it's up right behind the back window, and it's really cool. The problem is it would basically need to be on this side, needs to be the sending unit, and this side needs to be the filler neck because of the Charger, I don't remember which one. The Challenger, I think, has the fuel neck on this side, but the Charger has it on this side, and they both have that quick fuel kind of snap-on thing. I technically need it over here. Well, the tank that has the filler neck over here is actually a bigger tank because that car is a bigger car versus the CUDA. I guess the Challengers, the one's the A-by, one's the, I never can remember which one's which. But anyway, so I'm going to have to cut a hole and put a filler neck there. So that long story of rambling, I need to fill this in, weld that hole, come over here somewhere, and I'm going to put a hole and fill this. I might even do it like up on top, make a notch somewhere, and so that, but I need to make sure it doesn't affect with the tank and the pump, so we'll have to play with all that. Here is an entire box of stuff for the CUDA, so let's open these boxes and see what we got. Got a box with a, you know, has the best label on it. So let's open these and see what's inside each box. All right, cut this open. Well, and we got best box back here. So my new rims. So there's the new rims for those over there, since those back two were badly dented. So I get to paint 2 more rims and then get 2 tires remounted and rebalanced on that. I'll do that at some point. I'm not going to grade on that right away. So here we have Easy Swap Hemi something something. Overpriced silicone because it has an M on it. A bolt main cap. All right. I'm sure that's a very cheap, inexpensive bolt. More paperwork. Yeah, okay. So, stuff. And yeah, so we've got, here's my new pan. This box seemed way too heavy for that just to be a pan. Let me pull this out. So it is actually a pretty heavy pan with, oh, okay, new pickup tube, cans of our dippy stick, and dippy stick tube, and stickers. So, yeah, so this is the pan that goes on that motor to be able to go in that car. That's a pretty damn well built product. Make sure there's nothing underneath that. Alright, just a box. So yeah, so one box for just an oil pan. I'll throw that back in there. We don't need all the fancy wrappings now since it's probably going to just get all put in. Maybe even this week or next week. We'll start on that right away. With the, I think I got the crew today of, well, there's myself, there's me, and I'm going to be here. I'm going to be here also. So between me, myself, and I should be able to get all this done. All right, there's that. Let's see what's in box number 3. Flange drive shaft output. Oh, so this is to be able to attach a solid axle drive line to this transmission, because figure the car this car transmission came out of was an independent rear suspension. You need this pretty little expensive doohickey right here, and this guy bolts on like that, and now that spinny makes this spinny, which makes the drive shaft spinnies, and hopefully I can make the tires spinny. Hopefully I make the tires spinny real hard. We'll put it over here, and then it's now there. What else we got? More packaging. I think I'm gonna need that. I thought I had the pedal. There's a pedal over there. I didn't need the pedal. All right, there's lots of stuff here. So that's so I can use the original AC compressor that's on the motor. So I can put AC compressing fittings on the motor. And power steering bolts, more garbage, another fitting, bolts, flange, a radiator hose specially made for the radiator we have. We have a 6/4 Hemi belt that goes for the power steering. That box is quite large. Let's pull some of these boxes out. Alright, so what's funny is this box right here, I called to order just this, is what turned into all of this. Simply because I thought I could use a lot of things that were in there, and apparently I can't. So I called to get this guy, because this guy basically mounts over here and replaces this pulley, because these cars didn't have power steering, they had electric power steering. And so all I wanted was this for the power steering to go on the new rack and pinion and everything that's going on here. And in the process of talking with them, they're asking me other questions like, do you have this or do you have that? And can it do this? And I got a real quick education on why a lot of that won't work and what I need to make that work. Stuff like this AC compressor. Well, I do heating and cooling, and I do air conditioning. I understand AC very well. I understand AC compressors. I used to do AC conversions on cars that never even had AC. And I was planning on using the AC compressor that was in the car. If you look at the back and how this is mounted, this is designed to mount to that car to replace that compressor that's there. That's why the new belt, because of the power steering pump in this, changes our belt configuration. But these newer AC systems have a little bumpy doohickey thing back in here, and they are a modulating, oops, they're back, and this is a modulating compressor, so it will blow up like a vintage air or old school air and things that way. Or what brand AC systems do I use? I'm not even sure, because to be totally honest, if anyone didn't know, there you go, Hot Rod Air products, half the price of Vintage Air. Vintage Air makes some neat products, some cool things. Those are about half the money. That's actually what's in this car. That's what's going in over here. There's their little mini box that's right on it. It has defrosters, it has everything that way. I've got the lines, fittings, and boots coming out of it. So, yeah, that compressor won't work with those systems. It will just run, overcharges things that way. So that's a big problem. But then this compressor, you can see they have a kind of a flat back model up on top here. This particular compressor that's on this motor, you can use. So, things to know. The newer models, they won't work. So you got to change the compressor, change the pulleys and that. So that's why I have now a new compressor. So this compressor will go on the CUDA. And the Plymouth Barracuda. So let's see what's in this box. It's heavy. And I'm guessing by all the pictures, it's the computer. So here is the entire new module and wiring harness. No reason to get into that and open too much. It's just a big ass wad of wires and some directions on how to wire all this together. So there's that. New O2 sensors. New O2 sensors. All right. And fuel line kit regulator. So there's our fuel filter and fuel lines to go through the whole system, which now I actually do need to find out, because they were supposed to sell me a fuel tank. That's what had me thinking that tank didn't need it. It was supposed to have the fuel tank in it for, yeah, there's no way that's going to be high pressure, because those are just slip-on fittings. So these are slip-on fittings, so I don't have something correct. It's funny that it's a 6.1. That's a 6.1 Hemi there. All right. Well, new fuel lines, which I have cheap rubber hoses all through that, so that's going to be a lot nicer. That was more of a splurge item of I didn't have to have, but it does make it better. All right, and what else is in this box? There's that, and a piece of paper and a hose. Cool. All right, well, that is the parts that came in this week. So I can make some progress on both cars and go from there. So I'll work throughout the day. What the hell was that? Oh, okay. There's a front right here. I think it was up underneath on the car somewhere. Okay. I'll work on it throughout the day, take a little process of some things I got done, and, you know, post this on Sunday and show you our updates and where we're going to be. well, playing around with some of the AC lines, and I went out and stole this AC hose off the old truck that was on the old compressor, and thought I could use that fitting and hose, but where everything's going, that's not going to work. And then that lovely box that we just opened had these nice little fittings right here that fit the compressor for the CUDA's fittings. But since that car is a little ways away from running with air conditioning, and this guy's not that far away from driving, I stole the fittings from that so I can put these on so I can get my hose on, and we can put that on. Keep it down over there. And so then out of the mock-ups of the radiator and that kind of deal, you do want to make sure your hot freon from the compressor, when it compresses it, goes in here, goes through this coil and the evaporator of the coil. You have to have the hot side, or the vapor side, going on the top so it gets compressed and comes down. Long story short, I have this guy upside down. So I need to unbolt that real quick, get that flipped back around, mount my hoses, get my hoses kind of cut and lined up. I think our dryer is going to go something like right here, and then our hose will go straight to it. It's like I said, it's not like we're going to tuck and hide anything. This is a driver. You're going to see stuff. It's functional. It's mechanical. So keep it clean, keep it tucked in. These lines are going to kind of come down behind the alternator, and we'll go from there. And he's working on an alternator. All right. Let's see what we got. Well, we got the transmission cooler, AC coil, radiators mounted, upper hose is connected, lower hose is connected, transmission cooler lines, got a little bracket here. We're going to need to put a little bolt right there and get that bolted down. AC compressors are in and tight, oiled and bolted in. It's going all the way over to that guy. Then our heater hoses have a little electric controller that opens and closes the heater. The hot water lines off the motor so that they're not pumping through that all the time. Got it coming around. Everything's wired onto our heater box. All our knobs and stuff are there, so I'm just going to leave that until the dash is ready so it can go in. So all the buttons and things will be ready to put in, so there's that. So AC and heater is basically done, other than a power wire. It needs a power wire and it's done. AC needs to be put under vacuum, nitrogen charged. Well, nitrogen charged, flushed, cleaned, then put under vacuum, and then charge it with some 410A, and, or not 410A, 134A, and it will be good to go and making good cold. So AC should be awesome and good and done. That is what we have basically accomplished for the day. I kind of am running into a problem with my wiring. I don't know if it's the brake switch. I put a brand new brake switch in. These are do not reinstall brake switches off the pedal, so that if for some reason my tail lights are just on all the time, I have no turn signals, my headlights aren't turning on. I don't know if something I cut out of the old harness. It's a big bummer. Having everything was working and now it's not, so I must have done something wrong. So I need to backtrack and go through a bunch of that. So bummer of a birthmark there. I'll figure out some of that. That could be a very long process. Brake lines are connected in. I did not get around to the rear diff. I think actually I'm going to start on that next and just start doing the rear diff and work on this for the rest of the night. And I think tomorrow we'll play on the CUDA and get some stuff going on it. What are they doing? Another guy trying to make a motor run. Cool. Oh. Zoom in. Zoom in. Wow. That's sparkly. Wow. Unzoom. Unzoom. Finger in screen. Alright. Let's see where we get. All right, here's a little recap of a lot of stuff that has happened in the last day or so, or this weekend. Like I was telling, I had a friend come out so that we could mess with our fuel tank, our fuel gauge. The ohms of the gauge they put in here was not even close to the ohms of what the factory was, which is what I requested from the people who put it in. He had a pile of specialty resistors that gets us exactly right. So now we have a wire right here that this will go into the cab and connect directly to here. And right now it's actually extremely accurate. It's not your parameters. It's going to be off. The way we set this up is pretty much from half tank should be half tank. So half tank down is probably a little off, and half tank up, it's probably going to stay full. It's probably more accurate from half tank down than half tank up, which honestly, I'm really happy about that. So knowing empty is knowing empty. That's a very important thing. The other thing is, remember when the previous video, I had the entire wiring harness and everything out here on the ground, and I started the car and everything worked, and the gauges from the old school, the modern gauges were lit up and everything showed me everything from fuel to RPM to voltage and blah, blah, blah. And when I cut out all of this and I got rid of this mess, I can now get rid of this. When I took this mess out and I took all that out of the harness, for some reason after that was taken out, the gauge said no bus and the gauges did not work. But the motor still fired up, ran, everything was good. I figured that'd be fine because I'm putting the other gauges in. Who cares? I don't need these gauges. Then I've been trying to figure out the headlights, taillights, because that was the reason for keeping this harness, is all the wiring still here. So we had all the wires and everything in it. And I'm taking test lights and test meters to try to turn on the headlights, and I had nothing. I had no resistance, nothing on the bulbs, nothing on the connections, nothing's lighting up. On the taillights, nothing was lighting up. But then I had like constant taillights, or my taillights were always on, which I believed. Let's go over here. Where did I put it? Well, there's the factory brake light switch that they say right on it. Well, here it is. So the factory brake light switch says right on it, do not reinstall, because once you flip this little lever on the back and you install it, this distance of this pin right here, where it's adjusted to the brake pedal, it's then locked in that position so that once you open and close it, it won't change again. I actually bought a new brake light switch, figured that's because this was the old one that was out, and then once I put the new one in, and you look up online, once you take these out, your brake lights will always be on until you put a new one in, because they have to be reset. So I put a new one in, it did the exact same thing. We actually took this apart, and it's a very simple mechanical lever, and I was able to reset them so that you can reset it again. So I got my old one to reset and I got my new one to reset. And because I welded a tab to the brake pedal for this to work, my tab wasn't welded quite right in a position to, even once I locked this switch over, it wouldn't work. But it now works. So we now have tail lights. And the other side of it too is I wasn't getting anything through a test meter trying to figure out headlights and taillights. We had to put an actual bulb on your taillights so that there's resistance. Back to this is new enough that the computer needs to recognize the resistance to give it power. So it wasn't even turning on until it had resistance. So once I put a bulb in it, they actually started working, which I was going down a wormhole of didn't have brakes without with testing it with my test lights and my meters, you have to have a bulb on it to show resistance. So then I wired a tail light, a headlight to the tail lights, trying to figure out why they were going, and then found out that even my new brake light switch was always in the on position, so I always had brake lights. And then we readjusted and fixed the brake light switch, so now the brake lights work off the pedal, my turn signals work off the turn signals, and everything is working off of the original wiring harness and everything that's there. The tail lights work, the turn signals work, things that way. It's also, you can hear inside the gauge cluster the clicking. And then you can hear in the fuse box up front the clicking. So I was like, where's the flasher? You know, in an old vehicle or a new vehicle, you know, you have to have a flasher for it to work. I couldn't find the flasher, can't figure out which the flasher was. Also back to, I really don't want this headlight switch in my dash. I want this to look very period correct 60s. So I didn't want this, trying to make an aftermarket normal headlight switch work. And unfortunately, there's so much electronics in this box. We took it apart. I can't say we. A BJ took it apart. And I mean, if I'm going to use this harness with this computer, I need this switch. So I'm going to actually be hiding this switch upside down-ish under the dash, so I can feel this knob and I can turn the headlights on from here, but you won't see the knob on the front of the dash. Kind of a compromise of making it work without having a modern, ugly plastic switch on my pretty dash. The other thing was, so now that we have all this on, the original theory here is to, you know, unplug all this, cut out more that I don't need, get rid of this just scary mass of wires. There's a lot here that need to be cleaned up, taken out. Lot going on. Get rid of a little bit more and just tuck these wires up in. And when you unplug these off the back of this and throw it off the side, none of the headlights work, none of the tail lights work, and the only thing that works is the engine starts. So I have to have this piece of shnikes plugged in to the harness for everything to work. Which also I was going back and forth with it unplugged, plugged in when I was trying to test stuff, and then finding out that once it was plugged in, leaving it plugged in is what was giving me more communication. So I'm going to take this apart and just try to have just the electrical module back here, and it'll probably have to live somewhere up in here. So you have to have this gauge cluster has to be hooked up for the vehicle to basically run. The motor will run without it, but also the RPM, it seemed like it didn't run right. So that is progress that was happened with the electrical. So it was a long, drawn out back and forth, but the great news is now the headlights, taillights, turn signals, everything work for it. They just need to be now soldered, welded, wired in right. Tuck the wires up, clean stuff up, and just put it in. That takes a lot of time of cleaning. Started on some brake lines, got all the brake lines connected, got the entire rear parking brakes had to change. Like I said, this axle was removed and needed a whole new axles put in. So now the axles finally put in, the brakes are hooked up, the differentials. Guy's been taking the cover off, sealed and painted. Well, I'm going to need to paint it. That differential was blue, and so now it's lightly sanded down and cleaned. It will get a little rattle can black and look all shiny after I get throw some oil in it. I will put new brakes on, so they're just super rusty. Like I said, this has been sitting for a little bit, and plus with doing body work and painting this multiple times, it looks cruddy, but I'm going to get these brakes to kind of function, and then I'll put new brakes on it. So then we'll have good brakes. I don't have the parking brake cable going from underneath all the way up into the cab. I need to make some cables and make things for that to work. But we've got major progress done. I was going to try to get the fuel tank in the CUDA, take it down and demask it and get some things going on it today, but I think I'm going to spend the rest of the day trying to finish up some button-up ends on this guy. I do have all our AC lines done, and all the heater hoses are done, and the heater controls are done, so all that's completely done. This has a tranny cooler, your AC coil, the radiator, and then even way underneath is a power steering cooler on this. There's almost more coolers and stuff on this than even on my diesel. But that's that. I highly doubt I'm going to leave the air cleaner right there. I just had it on the shelf and it kind of fit. So it's like, it's there. So that is where that has gone. So if you're ever thinking about doing the modern chassis to the modern or the older school wiring harness versus buying an aftermarket harness, you know, aftermarket harnesses and computers can be $1,500 to $2,000. There's a lot there. So is it worth $2,000 or $1,500 to not have that wad of wire up under your dash? Sure, if you're doing a clean, nice thing. But also you have to realize if you are going to be running, like if I was to take the wiring harness out of that car that runs the engine and put that engine control module on this engine to make this run, you then have to go with like a painless wire or an easy wire system with another fuse box and have another fuse box for your heater controls, your headlights, your tail lights, your turn signals, your dome lights, your radio, blah, 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 blah. You need all that stuff also for the system to work. So, you know, you spend $1,500 on a wiring harness. You're then going to have to spend a few $100s on a painless or easy wire setup to wire in your headlights, taillights, and that. So for what this vehicle is and how she's going to be a driver and a fun rig to rip around in, I don't care that I'm going to have a bundle of wire stuffed up under the dash somewhere. It's ugly and not professional or anything that way, but it will work. And then my heater box is fully hooked up. Everything works other than I don't have my electrical wires tied into it for power. But that is all done. Once I have the dash mounted, I will drill the holes in the dash for the knobs and things to go into. I might put different style knobs on. There's 4 or 5 knobs for the system. And maybe try to find some of the old 60s knobs off the original dash and see if I can glue them on or fix them on or something that way. So that's basically where I've got this weekend. I'm going to button up some more stuff, and that's how we got. You guys have a great one.